Hey everyone, this is Saito and welcome to my Mavuika guide. We're so close to the version 5.3 and that comes with the Pyro Archon. So this guide will tell you everything that you need to know if you want to build her. So let's get to the video, but before that, please consider to subscribe. We are basically at 200 subs and that means that I will make a special video about Genshin that will be pretty long. I made a post where you can vote the topic of the video that you want to see. So go check it out and now let's get right into the video. So first of all, how does she play? She has two ways of fighting and she can be both a sub DPS and a main DPS. If you tap the skill, she will make a ring of fire that will go around the character and it will deal some damage once every few seconds. So this is a good way to make the DPS do something even when you're off field. It makes some reactions, it gives you some damage, so that's pretty nice. But if you hold the skill, she will summon a motorbike and will start fighting on top of it. Her normal attacks will become motorbike attacks and will deal pyro damage. And also the motorbike can go on water, fly or climb rocks. Also she does not have energy, but instead she has fighting spirit. The fighting spirit is gained every time one of your party members does a normal attack or consumes natural points. So that means that if you want her to be a good character, you will need at least one more natural character in your team. Her burst however can still be used at 50%, but however the more it's charged up, the more damage will deal. She will enter a special mode where she will have a resistance to interruptions and also deal more damage, but of course based on the amount of fighting spirit that you have. So the priority is burst over skill or normal attacks. But also her passives are very nice. The first one says that every time one of your party members does a night soul burst, her attack will be increased by 30% for 10 seconds, which is going to be very nice. A 30% attack buff is very nice, especially in a team that is going to pull out many night soul bursts. The second passive however is even stronger and it says that when you do the burst, for each point of fighting spirit you will gain 0.2% damage bonus. This can be increased up to 40%, so if you have 100% fighting spirit you will gain a 40% damage bonus, and this will last for 20 seconds, but however it's gonna drain over time, so it won't be as powerful over the time. After like 10 seconds it's going to be pretty bad, but her burst is going to last for 7 seconds, which is more than enough. So she's very nice for exploration, she's very nice for damage, she's also a nice sub DPS, but she needs a Natlan character in the team, which oftentimes is going to be a 5-star. If you don't have Auroron, you will be forced to use Kachina, which is not a great option, and not many people have pulled for Shilonen. But if you have the Primo Gems, you should get Citlali, because these two work very well together. Now onto the weapons, the best one is of course 1000 Blazing Suns, which is going to be the signature weapon. It has a huge attack of 741, but a terrible crit rate of 11%. However, you can gain 20% crit damage every time you use the skill or the burst. When you use either the skill or the burst, you will gain something called Scorching Brilliance, which increases your crit damage by 20% and your attack by 28% for 6 seconds. And this can be applied once every 10 seconds, which is not too bad. Also, Scorching Brilliance can increase its duration by 2 seconds every time you do a normal or charge attack that will deal elemental damage. For example, the damage dealt by the motorbike. And the max amount of duration will be 6 seconds. So Scorching Brilliance will last 12 seconds and will apply every 10 seconds, so you will always have it. Also, this is amazing. Every time you are in the Night Soul Blessing state, these effects will be increased by 75% and their duration will not count even when you are off field. So I'm pretty sure that the attack buff and the crit damage buff will be increased by 75%. So you will gain a 21% additional attack damage and a 15% additional crit damage buff, resulting in a 49% attack buff and a 35% crit damage bonus, which will apply all the time if you're just spamming normal or charge attacks. The crit rate is very bad, but combined with the attack buff and the crit damage buff and also the base attack being very huge, I'm pretty sure this is a very good weapon, but I'm not sure how good it is on any other character though. Otherwise, if you have it, you can use the Beacon of the Red Sea, which is very nice because the main stat is a 33% crit rate buff, and also after your skill hits an opponent, your attack will be increased by 20% for 8 seconds, but your attack will also be increased by 20% every time you get hit. Both of these effects will last for 8 seconds and will also be able to be triggered even when off field. So if you get hit by anything that hits all of your party members, they will still gain a 20% attack buff. And lastly, if you don't have a shield, your max HP will be increased by 32%, which is very nice, especially if you combine it with the resistance interruption that she gains during the burst. So you can get up to 33% crit rate, a 40% attack buff, and also a 32% max HP buff. But the biggest problem is that this weapon was available only in the first phase of the version 3.5, which happened, well, more than a year and a half ago. And it will most likely never get a rerun, so yeah, this weapon, I don't think you're gonna get it. Unless you did pull for it in the past, but it's not a really common weapon to get, at least for that time, so I don't think you have it. Also, if you did get the Battle Pass, which to me is not a very good choice, you can use the Serpent Spine, which first of all increases your crit rate as the main stat by 28%, and also every 4 seconds of you being on the field, you will deal 6% more damage. And also this can be applied once every 5 times, resulting in a 30% more damage bonus. However, take in mind that for each stack you will also take 3% more damage, resulting in a maximum of 15% more damage taken. These effects won't get removed if you leave the field, but every time you take damage you will lose 1 stack. But an easy to obtain option can be the Black Leaf Slasher or the Earth Shaker, which increases your attack by 28% 15%, and also your skill damage will be increased by 16% for 8 seconds every time one of your party members will trigger a pyro reaction. Now for the artifacts, the best set is by far the Obsidian Codex, because you already know a 40% crit rate is very nice. At 4 pieces, every time you consume a Night Soul point while on the field, you will gain a 40% crit rate buff for 6 seconds, which is very huge. This can trigger once every second, so you will basically never run out of it, and also you will also gain a 15% damage dealt when you are in the Night Soul Blessing. I said this since day one of Natlan, you will always need Obsidian Codex. I feel like every single character in Natlan will need Obsidian Codex, apart from maybe Kachina and Shilonen. So if you want a main DPS from Natlan, always go for Obsidian Codex. But otherwise, if you do have Arlecchino and Huta already built and you just want Mavuika, then you can give her the Crimson Witch of Flames. It increases some reactions by 40% damage and also melt and vaporize by 15%. Also you gain a 15% pyro damage bonus, but every time you use the skill, that effect will be increased by 50% for 10 seconds. And this can stack up to 3 times, so this is basically a huge option for every single pyro DPS. And I'm pretty sure most of you have this set, because many people have pulled for Arlecchino and Hutao, and they're gonna just share the set. Lastly, you can also choose the Marachusi Hunter, but only if you're using Purina. Purina can change the HP of all of your characters, so if you get this set, you will gain a 36% crit rate buff, because every time you consume or gain HP, she will gain a 12% crit rate buff. This can stack up to 3 times and will last for 5 seconds, but you also gain a normal and charge attack damage buff by 15%. So, Obsidian Codex at the top, then Crimson Witch, and then Marachusi Hunter, but only if you have Purina. But if you want to build her as a sub DPS, I guess you can try the Scroll of the Hero of the Cinder City, which gives you 6 energy every time one of your party members triggers a Night Soul Burst, which is going to be pretty common if you're playing in an Atlan team, and you should in a team for Mavuika, so that's pretty nice. But at 4 pieces, every time you trigger a reaction, and this also works for off-field, all of your party members will gain a 12% elemental damage bonus for those types. So if you trigger Melt, you will gain a 12% Cryo and Pyro damage bonus. But if you are in the Night Soul Blessing state while doing this effect, you will gain an additional 28% elemental damage bonus. So you will gain a 40% elemental damage bonus for those types. Lastly, if you really don't have anything else, you can give her a 2 pieces Gladiator's Finale and 2 pieces Crimson Witch of Flames, which will give her a 15% Pyro damage bonus and an 18% attack buff. For the main stats, attack percent as the Sands, Pyro damage bonus for the Goblet, and also crit rate or crit damage for the Circlet. And for the substats, crit over attack over elemental mastery. Energy regen is basically useless in this case because she does not even use energy. So the best team is going to be with Citlali, Xilonen, and Bennett. That is because Citlali is made for Mavuika, she's very powerful with her, because she will reduce the resistance of your opponents to melt reactions. Xilonen is very powerful because she also provides a lot of points for both Mavuika and Citlali, and also she can reduce the resistance of your enemies by a lot. And lastly, there is Bennett, which is a very good support both because of the burst and also thanks to the elemental resonance. So this is by far the best team that she can have, but otherwise you can give Rosaria instead of Citlali if you don't have Primo Gems to pull for them both, or if you have Citlali but not Xilonen, you can remove Xilonen and put Citlali, so you will have a double Cryo, Bennett and Mavuika. Or instead of Citlali, you can put Purina, because Purina is also very powerful. I'm gonna put Mona because I don't have Purina. But this is going to be very powerful, especially if, as I said before, Mavuika is going to put the Marachusi Hunter set, because it's also going to give her not only Vaporize reactions, which are going to be very powerful, but also a 36% crit rate buff, which is going to be a good option if you don't have the 40% that Obsidian Codex is going to give you. But we also have some teams for my favorite reactions apart from Electrocharge, which is going to be Overload, because if you have Auroron, which I don't, you can put Chevreuse and Bennett, which are going to be very powerful together. An Overload team is very nice, but Auroron is much needed because you will always need a Natlan character for Mavuika, and also Chevreuse is necessary for every single Overload team, but otherwise you can remove Bennett and put Fischl and Auroron. A lot of Electro, a lot of Pyro, but Mavuika will have to stay on the field this time. Another nice team can be with Xilonen, Purina, and also Mualani, which is going to be a Vaporize team. This time it's going to be a double DPS team, but Mavuika will be the sub DPS. So Mualani will deal a huge amount of damage with the back shots, and when your energy is full, you will be able to use Mavuika. You can also go for a Burning team with Kinich, Bennett, and Emily. I'm using Colley because I don't have that bitch. Or use her as a sub DPS and put as the main DPS Variotesli. I don't have him because he's never going to be released again, but yeah, this is a good team for Variotesli. This is also a good team for Ganyu, but both Ganyu and Variotesli do not exist. And also if you don't have Shilona, you can just replace her with Kachina. Of course, it's not going to be the same thing, but she's also going to be pretty nice. So she can be very versatile. There are so many teams that can work with her, maybe also Bennett and another character, but something that you need to realize is that you will always need a Natlan character, and if you don't have Citlali or Xilonen, you will always need Kachina. Now for the Constellations, I feel like these are the strongest ones in the whole game. I think I said this already for the previous character, but these are by far the strongest Constellations I've ever seen. The first one is already crazy. Not only you gain Fighting Spirit 25% more efficiently, but the Night Soul points of Mavuika will be increased to 120, so you can stay with the motorbike for much longer. And also you'll gain a 40% attack buff for 8 seconds after gaining Fighting Spirit, which is very common, and a 40% attack buff is very huge. Plus the fact that you gain Fighting Spirit so much more, and having even more Night's Soul points, this is a consistency buff and it's a very powerful one. But the second one is somehow even stronger. While you are in the Night's Soul Blessing state, she will increase not only her attack by 200, but she will also gain a few buffs. First of all of your nearby opponent's defense will be decreased by 20%, and I will keep saying this, decreasing the defense of your enemies is so much more than just buffing your attack. They get so much more damage not only by you but also by all of your supports, but you will also gain a 60% normal attack and a 90% charge attack, and lastly the Sunfell Slice damage from your elemental burst will be increased by 120%. So you increase your attack by 200, you decrease the resistance of your opponents by 20%, and you also gain a nice buff on your normal charge attack and also your burst. That is a crazy constellation. The fourth one is a buff to your passive talent, which is that passive that said that you gain a 40% attack buff while in the burst state, but it will decay over 20 seconds. Well, in this case, if you have the C4, not only it will not decay, but you will also gain an additional 10% attack damage bonus. So for 20 seconds after using the burst, you can gain up to 50% damage bonus. This is also insane. Oftentimes the C4 is not a very powerful one, but this one is sick. And lastly, the final constellation finally gives her some buffs if you want her to be a sub DPS. Every time the Ring's attacks hit the opponents, you will deal some damage with a Flame Strider, which is the motorbike. So every time you deal damage, the motorbike will fly onto the enemies, dealing 200% of your attack. And also while in the motorbike state, you will decrease the opponent's defense by another 20%, and also once every 3 seconds you will deal 400% of your attack to the enemies. Lastly, for the exploration part, if you're not in combat and you have less than 5 Night's Soul points, you will immediately gain 80 Night's Soul points, but this can only apply once every 15 seconds. So to be honest, this C6 is very nice, but you don't really need it. I feel like the first one and the second one are very powerful, but not even the fourth one is bad, so technically you should get the first one and the second one because they are by far the strongest ones, but even getting a C3 or a C4 is not that bad. So in the end, should you pull for her? Honestly, yeah, I think so. She's going to be 100% the strongest pyro DPS, which is already a good thing. As of right now, the strongest pyro DPS is Arlecchino, but she's going to be stronger than her, and she can be very flexible. Not only she's a main DPS, but you can just play her as a sub DPS, and once the ultimate is ready, she can just enter the field, deal some damage, and then go back. But there is a big problem, that you will always need an Atlan character with you. Kachina is not that great, and if you don't have Shilonen, it's going to be pretty rough. But the strongest team in the whole game is going to be for sure one with Mavuika and Citlali, so if you want a very strong meta team, you should get both her and Citlali. But she's also very nice with basically every Atlan character. I am not sure if she's going to be good with Capitano, but she could be very powerful, so yes, I think she's kinda worth it. And that's it for the video. If you enjoyed it, remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!